Hi, my name is Tom Lonergan, and I'm from the HP Golf Committee. This is a video of a presentation that was made to the board in November regarding our golf greens. After review, the proposal was accepted by the board, and they asked us to proceed with communications to the members in preparation for a member-wide vote, which will be conducted in March. So let's get started. What's the problem? Greens age faster in Southwest Florida and begin to fail after 20 years. They age faster than greens in northern climate zones. 12-month growing season accelerates the buildup of organic matter. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Severe climate conditions. The greens mix layer. We're going to talk about the layers that are underneath the green in just a minute. The greens mix layer below absorbs organic matter, blocking the flow of air and water. Limestone gravel layer gets thin and dissolves over time. Drainage suffers. Off-type grasses spread on the surface. So we're going to hear these terms throughout the presentation. Organic matter, this is not good organic like a grocery store. This is bad organic. Greens mix layer is a layer of sand underneath the green surface, about 15 to 18 inches. Limestone gravel is a layer of gravel that's underneath that, again, to build a good drainage structure underneath. Off-type grasses are invaders. They're other grass types that come onto the surface and can take over time. It's very, very difficult to keep off-type grasses from growing on the surface. So where do they deteriorate? Here's a picture of a green, standard USGA structure green. Putting surface off-types, yes. Greens mix. So there's the greens mix layer. This is about 15 to 18 inches of sand of a particular particle size. And that's where organic matter can accumulate at the top. And you aerate to keep that out of there, but over time it gets deeper and begins to cause problems on your nice putting surface. Here's our limestone gravel layer. Limestone is not the best choice for gravel, but it's the natural resource in Florida. It's in the entire state of Florida. Florida should be called the limestone state, or maybe the sinkhole state, which is largely because of limestone. And the drainage pipes can clog underneath as well. That can deteriorate. This is a subsoil layer under here, and no, that does not typically deteriorate. This is an engine. This is like a drainage engine with a tailpipe. And when all the parts are functioning properly, you have a nice green surface on the top. When any of these begin to break down, it begins to show up on the surface. Proliferation of off-types. So I mentioned off-types before. This is a patchwork of grass types spread throughout the greens. Percentage of off-type contamination increases each year and can't be fixed without replacing it. In other words, you can't just spray Roundup on it and repair it. And here's a quote from John Foy, our USGA Greens representative. When surface contamination exceeds 50%, it's almost impossible to provide a top quality putting surface. I looked for a picture of this, and I didn't have to look very far. This is actually our number 12 Sable Green. You can see the off-types that have come into the green surface here. Let's just define a few more terms. There's two methods of regrassing greens. One's called strip and rip, and the other one is called USGA rebuild. Strip and rip is a surface-only regrassing method, which is widely accepted. A strip and rip comes from the hair removal. It's a hair removal technique in a studio where they lay hot wax down on somebody and let it cool and then rip it off. It was in the movie Hitch, if you saw that, where Kevin James is laying on the table and they poured hot wax on it. It was a hilarious scene from the movie. But it applies here, and it's used in the golf business to indicate a surface only. They take the surface off plus about 4 inches of this layer underneath, strip and rip. Or a USGA rebuild where they go down, take out this greens mix layer because it's contaminated with organic matter over time. And the gravel comes out, the limestone gravel sort of dissolves, gets thin, goes beyond its useful life, and the pipes come out as well. So that's an USGA rebuild. Strip and rip versus USGA rebuild. Now, this subsoil layer is very important because this is where the architect builds the contours into the greens. And if you were to do a USGA rebuild and take this out, it would take you down to the layer where the contouring is done. So it does allow an adjustment to the contouring if the membership would want to change the contour on a green. I happen to like our green contours a lot. I think it makes the golf course. So I'd be careful about, maybe adjusting them. I'd want them to stay the same, except perhaps for a few exceptions. What age are our greens? This is commonly misunderstood. In 1998 was the original construction using Tiff Dwarf. In 2007, there was a surface strip and rip. We know what that is now. The change was made to mini Verdi grass. The base layers did not change, but there were a few exceptions, like number 4 Royal, which was completely rebuilt. So yeah, there were some greens that went all the way down and redid gravel and piping and the rebuild, but just a few. For the most part, this was a strip and rip. But here's what happened. 2008 till now, off types, you can see them. They've proliferated and spread. But this is different. This is not from age. This is from a bad batch of mini Verdi grass that was received from the supplier in 2007, 2008. It affected a lot of golf courses, not just ours. It's a big problem, big snafu. So we do see off types. They're quite bad on our course, but it's not just an age-related off type. This was from 2007. Today we have a top surface that's 12 years old, but the layers below are 21 years old and nearing the end of their useful life. 21 years old is very old for Florida. So what have other courses done? Well, there's quite a few of them, and as you know, in South Florida, I picked up the reciprocal list and called the ones that I was familiar with. I've played these over the summer. Just to give you an idea of what's going on out there, it's quite common, actually. Colonial, across the interstate. After 16 years, a USGA rebuild is scheduled for 2021-22, and Tiff Eagle is the grass they're using. That's the most common grass that's used now in South Florida. You know what the USGA rebuild means now. Gateway, not far from here, USGA rebuild scheduled for 2021. They did a strip and rip in 2014. Looks like they got about 7 years out of it, I guess. Cypress Lakes down in Daniels, a beautiful course. After 18 years, USGA rebuild 2017. Audubon, 18 years. We waited too long, Pro said. Collier's Reserve, a little more upscale course there. I love that course. After 16 years, USGA rebuild in 2018. Look at this comment. We're on a 15-year cycle. In other words, they know now what they're going to be doing 15 years from now. They've got it built into their reserve structure, their dues structure, and so forth. Different culture there. The Forest has done this. Lexington is a bundled community over off of Summerlin. 17 years, rebuild done. Tiff Eagle. Vanderbilt, another bundled community, which I visited a few years ago. After 15 years, the USGA rebuild done in 2015. Tiff Eagle. Interesting, they're all Tiff Eagle. It seems to be everywhere now. It's good grass. Testing. In June, Greg brought in Mark Burrows, a turf consultant, to perform some testing to inspect the layers under the surface. Core samples were taken from 4 greens. The greens mix layer has organic buildup at the top, but it generally passed the test for particle size. The gravel layer didn't fare as well. That's the limestone gravel. Test reported the gravel size was not within USGA guidelines. And here's a picture of a crosscut from Sable number 8. You can see this is the 15 inches of greens mix layer here. Should be all sand. You can see it's black on top for about, looks like about 4 inches on top. And then down here, we've got our limestone gravel layer down here. And here's just a close-up of some of that organic material on the top. The summer aeration can get at about 2 inches on that. That's about as deep as you can go without really ripping it apart and regrassing. The turf consultant commented that our test results were not bad for a 21-year-old base. He was complimentary of Greg and the ongoing maintenance and aeration that have kept the greens healthy for so many years, a tribute to the work done by the golf course operations. We asked him, of course, how much time do we have? That's the big question. And how quickly will they fail? But the consultant could not tell us when the greens will fail, but he recommended that we do a USGA rebuild at this time. How long does the project take? Strip and rip takes 3 years. USGA rebuild takes 3 years. The only difference is the downtime during the summer months. Strip and rip is 4 to 5 months. USGA rebuild is a full 6 months of downtime. This is what a timeline would look like. 2020, 3-year timeline. If this were to proceed this year, during the spring, it would be design, summer quotes, sign a contract by the end of the year. Work would start spring, April 2021. First course, say it's Sable, would be down for 6 months. Then the next year, Royal would be down for 6 months during the summer months. So I'm a summer resident. We will play the other course during the summer and while the courses are under construction. Here's the thing. Another strip and rip to remove the off types is not a feasible option. It's expensive, about half the cost of a USGA rebuild. The time to complete is 3 years, same as a rebuild. You wouldn't put a new surface on a base that's 24 years old. That's 21 plus 3, 24 years old. USGA describes that as similar to putting new carpet on a rotted subfloor. A USGA rebuild is the only feasible option for HP. Why now? Why proceed with a USGA rebuild now? Number one, our mission. Our golf courses are our main asset, and their quality is critical to the value and enjoyment of our community. Number two, condition. The many variety off-type grasses on the surface are spreading and getting worse. They need to be replaced. Number three, risk. Losing our greens without sufficient time to rebuild them is not a risk we can afford to take, nor is it a risk that other courses take. What will it cost? In August, we received estimates from 5 contractors for one course for Sable. Gordon Lewis, our architect, provided the survey information for these courses, for these companies to do these estimates. USGA rebuild, we know what that is. GCID to Glace, 1.2 million was the low, 1.6 million was the high. For 2 courses, though, we need to double that. For 2 courses, construction costs are 2.4 to 3.2, just twice these. Approximately 4 million total, including contingency-related construction and financing costs. But the final estimates are expected in late January. We'll know more then, and we'll communicate that to the community. The Golf Committee and our advisors recommend that we proceed with the USGA rebuild at this time. Greg Creech, Director of Golf Course Operations, Mark Burrows, the turf consultant, Gordon Lewis, Golf Course Architect. It's great to have the original architect on the team, and the HP Golf Committee. It's time. Thank you. I hope you found this informative. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. My email address is in the directory, Tom Lonergan. Thank you.